On the afternoon of July 3, 1863, somewhere along a tree line in southern Pennsylvania, a 28-year-old colonel sat with a piece of paper in his hand and the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on his chest. His name was Edward Porter Alexander, and in that moment his commanding general had just done something extraordinary, something almost unthinkable in the chain of command of any army. General James Longstreet, one of the most experienced corps commanders in the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, had handed the decision to launch the most famous infantry assault in American history to a colonel of artillery. Not to a division commander, not to a fellow general, a colonel. Why would Longstreet do that? And what does it tell us about what the Confederate High Command actually believed, in private, about Pickett's charge? Before we continue, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. That question is at the center of what we're going to explore today. Because the story most people know about Pickett's charge is a story of dramatic, almost romantic sacrifice. 15,000 men stepping out of the tree line, flags flying, marching across nearly a mile of open ground into the guns of the Union Army. What that story leaves out is the internal argument happening on the Confederate side, the ammunition crisis no one talks about, and the striking possibility that the men who ordered the charge didn't actually believe it would work. We know all of this because one man wrote it down. 14 years after the battle, Porter Alexander put his recollections on paper in a letter to a French historian, and the result is one of the most candid, self-aware, and analytically honest first-hand accounts to survive the entire Civil War. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand not just what happened on July 3rd, you'll understand why it happened the way it did, and why the man who pulled the trigger spent the rest of his life thinking about it. Before we can understand what Alexander did at Gettysburg, we need to understand who he was, because his background matters enormously to how he processed the situation. Porter Alexander was born in Georgia in 1835. He graduated from West Point in 1857, finishing third in his class, and quickly proved himself to be one of those rare officers who combined technical brilliance with genuine battlefield instinct. In the years before the Civil War, he was involved in early experiments that would eventually give birth to the U.S. Signal Corps. So this was a man who understood communication, coordination, and the flow of information under pressure before most military officers even had a vocabulary for it. When the war came, Alexander went with his state. He joined the Confederacy and built a reputation battle by battle. First Manassas, the Peninsula Campaign, Second Manassas, Antietam, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville. At each engagement, his artillery placements helped shape Confederate outcomes. He was meticulous, he was precise, and critically, he had served as Chief of Ordnance for the Army of Northern Virginia from August 1861 through November 1862, meaning he knew, better than almost anyone else in that army, exactly how much ammunition they had and exactly how fast they could burn through it. That background becomes crucial as our story unfolds. By the time the Army of Northern Virginia marched north into Pennsylvania in the summer of 1863, Alexander was commanding an artillery battalion under Longstreet's First Corps. He was 28 years old. He was, by every measure, excellent at his job. And he was about to be handed a responsibility that, as he later wrote, he felt very deeply. What Alexander represents in this story isn't just a military figure. He represents something rarer, an honest witness. He was not trying to protect his own legacy when he wrote his 1877 letter. He wasn't trying to blame Longstreet or defend Lee or rehabilitate Pickett. He was trying to explain what actually happened and why. That kind of candor is valuable precisely because it was so unusual in the post-war South, where the myth of the lost cause was being constructed in real time, and where the narrative of Gettysburg was already being shaped and reshaped by men with reputations to protect. Porter Alexander had a reputation too, but he also had a conscience. Let's set the scene. It's before dawn on July 3, 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg is already 2 days old. The first day had ended with the Confederates driving Union forces back through the town and onto the high ground south of it, Cemetery Ridge, Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill. The second day had seen brutal, grinding assaults on both flanks of the Union line at places like Little Round Top, the Peach Orchard, and the Wheat Field. Those assaults had done real damage, but they hadn't broken the Union Army.